What's happening, fishing friends, and welcome to another episode. Now, today's video was a request from Dave Carroll on Instagram. He commented and simply said, 5 lures that I would never leave home without. I thought, yes, perfect time to talk about some baits when there's that awful yucky winter snow stuff out there. Not a fan. So where should we start? Lure number 1, if you're a regular on the channel, it is probably no surprise that the first lure on my list would be a frog. Yes, a hollow-bodied topwater frog. Now, I know a lot of people might be scrunching their face saying, really, a topwater frog? You know, a lot of folks who I talk to that ask me how I'm catching fish on a frog have this preconceived notion. They think you have to have extremely thick lily pads or, you know, the grossest, thickest scum to be able to throw a frog. And though that is the strength of the frog, you can throw it in all those sorts of places, the really thick, gross stuff, but it's not the only place. I love a simple frog like this because of how versatile it is. When you do a lot of bank fishing like I do, you're often limited to the spots that you can hit from the bank. So being good and weedless like a frog is, just like this one, it allows you to throw it in that real thick stuff. You can throw it in pads, the thick stuff like I said earlier, over, you know, wood and logs, you can pop it over it. Along and in grass, you can crawl it through there. You've got a lot of options. You know, a tip I heard from Jacob Wheeler on an MLF is you just cut the legs off this. You can walk a little frog like this just like you would a shad. So when the shad spawn's going on, or you notice they're hitting bait fish on the topwater, try cutting those legs completely off and slowly twitching this on the top, just like you would a spook or any other sort of topwater walking bait. You'd be amazed at how well that does. You could also carry a popping frog, something like this, the popping perch that I had a ton of success with this year. You know, in the middle of the day when those fish push up in the shade, you know, a popper, just say, you know, a Rebel Pop R is a great way to target those fish. Real slow, methodical. You can throw it next to a big log, a high percentage spot, and leave it there. Leave it there. That anticipation, that weight is what kills those fish, and as soon as you pop it, you can work a popping frog in the exact same way. You just don't have to worry about getting hung up on all those limbs and wood and such. Now, if you're a fan of cast and retrieve topwater lures, something like a buzzbait or Whopper plopper, yes, they even make the frogs like this with the plopping tail on back. So something like this old Teckle Sprinkler frog, you can throw that up in the moss, the weeds, and bring it out just like you would a Whopper plopper, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. So that's why the regular old topwater, a little frog like this would be my first lure choice. In a black like this is what I would choose. I like that dark color, seems to do well in the sun or in the dark. It just makes a nice silhouette on the top of the water. So got him. The frog, my number 1 pick. And I forgot to add, there is no better way to catch a bass than on a frog, in my opinion. Now, lure number 2 ties well into the frog, and that's going to be a stick bait. Specifically for me, it would have to be a Texas rig stick bait. You can see this is one that was well used. I found on the floor over here. They just get bit. A lure like this honestly doesn't need much explanation. A stick bait, I mean, it is arguably one of the best fish catchers on the market, period. And it's nothing more than a little stick you put a hook on and throw it out. Pop it a couple times, let it sink down, pop it a couple more times, rinse and repeat. It catches numbers. I mean, I've had days where I've caught, you know, 40, 50 bass on something like this, but it also catches size, you know. I've caught a ton of big fish on these. Now, how does one of these tie into frog fishing? Well, if you get a frog blow up, I know a lot of people get frog blow ups and they miss the fish. Well, you can cast back in and try to get it with the frog. Oftentimes you will, but I would say 7 out of 10 times, if you have a stick bait like this rigged up, for me it would specifically be a Texas rig stick bait, a weedless stick bait, because I'm usually casting that frog around stuff. If I have a weedless Texas rig stick bait and cast that in right after a blow up, there's a very good chance you're going to get that fish. So yes, a stick bait like this is an excellent follow-up lure, not only for frogs, but if, you know, you get a fish to show itself, it's under a log, you bring a spinnerbait by, comes out and flashes on it and goes back in. That fish is aggressive and it's showing itself, there's a good chance you throw that in. That nice subtle little finesse presentation of this just ever so gently wiggling down, fish can't resist it. You know, there's a reason a lot of guys turn to a stick bait like this, you know, those hot summer days where it's 90 some degrees out, you can't seem to get a bite on anything moving, you switch over to something like this. Now my choice, the exact choice that I would have for this stick bait would be the Reaction Innovations Pocket Rocket, and that color right there, it's Payback. So you can see on the bottom, it's a green pumpkin with a flake in it. On the top of it there, it's a black and blue flake. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It does well in, you know, kind of clear stained water all the way up to dark water. That dark color makes a silhouette. I like the little ridges on this. I feel like the Pocket Rocket has more action going down, and it's just a little bit bulkier profile. So if you kind of struggle sometimes to throw in a, you know, a regular stick bait like this, bump up that Pocket Rocket. It's got a little bit more weight. You can see the front and back are a little bit more bulbous, a little bit thicker. Try tying on one of those. It's a 6 inch 6-inch stick bait. I have caught a bajillion of fish on these. By far my favorite stick bait on the market. They're pretty durable, you know, unlike a Senko. They are amazing. They catch fish, but oftentimes you're only catching one per bait. These, you can make them go a little longer. You can always bite the tip of it off and use it a few more times. So lure number 2, a Texas rigged stick bait. All right, lure number 3, keeping with that Texas rig theme, it's gonna be, well, a weighted Texas rig. I honestly have one of these tied on all year long. Again, this is just another one of those baits that is so versatile. Next to frogging, my favorite thing to do would be to pitch one of these around wood, flip it in there, and wait for that bite. You can throw it in the thickest of brush. You know, you bury that hook in there. It's very weedless. You don't have to worry about getting hung up all the time, you know, as opposed to fishing something with an open hook. You can swim this thing along the bottom. You can jig it up and down. And on those really hot summer days, you could bump that weight up and just very slowly drag it on the bottom. If I had to choose only one soft plastic on here, it would be hard. There's so many things out on the market now. You know, the Guggen baits, the bandito bug, you hear a lot of people talking about that.
So Debo, what'd you catch those fish on?
Creature bait.
What kind of creature bait?
Creature bait.
What was the...
I don't know, I don't have any more. The googie goog.
I have got to test this just a little bit, and they are pretty darn good. When I'm flipping around really thick, you know, timber and brush, I like to have something like this. This is the Reaction Innovation Sweet Beaver. There's not a whole bunch of legs and appendages, you know, crazy stuff for it to get hung up on. It goes straight in and comes straight out. But because of how consistent it is, it seems to fit in a bunch of different nooks. You can swim this thing, you can flip it and pitch it just like you would a craw. You can drag it. Heck, you can even use it as a jig trailer when you're done with it. For me, my answer would be this.
Got one. Yes, in the trees, there we go. I was hoping that some of this flooded timber would have some on it. But looky there. Second non-dink of the day.
The 4-inch green pumpkin with purple flake Berkley Pit Boss. I know, this thing's been around forever. There's nothing special to it. You can see here these little 2 flappers on the outside. They kick really well, so when you're swimming this, gives it a good kick action. If you're flipping this in and around brush, it's got that good kick when it goes down. But you notice, look at that. It's still got a good profile on it, so it can come in and come out without a bunch of legs and appendages getting stuck on stuff. You drag that baby on the bottom this way, it looks just like a craw, has a really, really good craw profile on it, so it can do a ton of different things. The 4-inch version is what I prefer. I've got an old bag of them here. This has a couple different kinds in it, but you can see the green pumpkin with green flake. I do like that color too, but it's just the kind of brownish, dullish, natural look of this green pumpkin with purple that I really, really like. So I would fish that with, where's that other one? A 4-aught heavy wire EWG hook, just like I have hooked up here. You can see where it goes right on the Havoc there, right to the back of it. So you've got a whole lot of hook there to hook them. And I would throw probably a 5/16 ounce tungsten, kind of right in the middle. 1/4 or 3/8 is usually what I use. So I'd go in the middle and say 5/16. So lure number 3, a Texas rig, weighted Texas rig like that. You can do a bunch with it. All right, lure number 4, we need to talk about a good search bait. And this is a tough one because there are so many different options out there, and it's going to vary a lot when you ask different people. If I were to ask, you know, Bass Geek out there, I guarantee he would say his search bait would be a swim bait. He fishes a lot of really deep, clear reservoirs. Now you go over to somebody like Tackle Junkie, he fishes basically in chocolate milk, muddy water. I don't know what that stuff is, but he's probably going to say a square bill or something with vibration, noise. You know, the fish need to hone in on it, they can't see it. I'm pretty lucky here in good old Iowa to have a number of different places. We've got some deeper clear spots, I've got some places that are chocolate milk, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So initially when I was thinking about my list, I thought about swim jig. It's been something that I've fished, you know, the past, 4 years, a lot more, and I've had a ton of success with it, not only in clear water. Prior to that, I pretty much only threw it in clear water, but I have more success in other spots. But I thought, you know what? If I'm fishing a really, really clear place and I've got all 5 of these combos with me, I can throw a different rig in that really clear stuff and I'm pretty confident I can get bit. So for me, my search bait of choice is going to be a chatterbait. You know, the chatterbait does so well in that stained all the way up into the muddy water, that vibration, the blade that it puts off. You've got the action from the skirt. As those fish get closer, you know, they can get the vibration of the tail, all kinds of things working for it to get that fish's attention and get it to react. Now, it does pretty well around grass. Doesn't play real well with woods. You have to watch it there, but you can fish in it in a lot of different spots and still do pretty well, as opposed to, say, if I were to pick a square bill, does great on rocks, but if you get it close to grass and doesn't often play the best. Now, you know, a square bill does bounce off wood pretty well, but I feel like for the spots that I fish with all the grass and such growing around, the chatterbait is going to be it. Now, it would be the chatterbait specifically. There's a lot of other things out on the market, like the Terminator shuttering bait. I did have some success with that this year. Something else out there like the Strike King Thunder Cricket. I had some really good success on that, and I do like the action of it, but for the price and the number of fish that I've caught on it, my choice would be the Z-Man Custom. Now, this is an exclusive on Tackle Warehouse, which is no matter to me because I order a bunch of stuff from them anyway. This thing you can get at great prices. Right now, I know Tackle Warehouse has the sale going on, and I believe chatterbaits are on it, so you might want to check here. You can get those customs for $1 or $2 off. Great little lure. It's good, dependable action. You know, some people say you need to have the jackhammer, and it does. It rattles right away. It starts vibrating. There's no pause to it. It is extremely, extremely dependable. However, I also don't want to pay $17 per chatterbait. So you can get these at a fraction of the price. You know, almost the price of a regular Z-Man chatterbait when they're on sale. They've got a ton of great colors in the skirt. That was something else I thought about. What color? I've had good luck on a white and chartreuse.
Oh, that is exactly what we're looking for. Are you kidding? Look at that chunk.
Black and blue does really good in dirty water, but for me it would be the Bee Height Delight. It's kind of a little mix of everything. It's got some white on the bottom. It's kind of got some green pumpkin chartreuse on top. Bottom of the jig head there is white, top of it's green pumpkin. I feel like it's just kind of a good all-around color and it works. Had to think hard about the trailer too. I used the Z-Man Zaco a lot this year, and I really, really like that, especially that color. It resembles the Tramp Stamp from Reaction Innovations. You can see green pumpkin, black flake on the bottom, black and blue on top. I thought it would be that one, but I'm like, you know what? I've got to stick with what's worked the best for me, which is Little Paddle Tail, specifically the Reactions Little Dipper and Sungill. Love that color. Looks amazingly like, you know, bluegill that we have around here. Does extremely well just on a jig head by itself, but throw that on a little chatterbait like this, and it is a very hard rig to beat. So number 4, my search bait of choice, a chatterbait. All right, number 5, last and certainly not least. What would my last pick be? Do you have any guesses? Let me give you some hints. It does really well in rocky, clear water. It's pretty subtle. I fish this thing on a spinning rig 100% of the time. Usually has a light wire hook on it, and a lot of people despise it. What is it? Well, it's the drop shot. Not really, I'm kidding. The drop shot and I kind of have a love-hate relationship. I worked on that rig a lot this year and I'm more comfortable with it, but my final choice, lure number 5, would be the Ned rig. To me, the reason this lure is so successful is because it appeals to all kinds of fish. You know, smaller fish, Debo, Dinks, I welcome on my channel. I know a lot of you out there catch them too. I'm not trying to hide it. I know some guys are trophy fishers and only want to catch the Slonchosaurus rex, donkey, toad, horse, slonch, monkey, sauce. But I'd rather catch a bunch of dinks than go home with a skunk. And I tell you what, the Ned rig, not necessarily the Ned craw, but a Ned rig is one of the best skunk repellents I've got. You know, I can take a regular Ned rig like this. This is just a regular green pumpkin Ned rig. I can throw this on the riprap banks of a river and catch smallmouth. I can throw it on rocky fishing jetties and catch largemouth. I can even throw it around grass now with some of these new heads and catch small largemouth. Debo Dinks. Now specifically the head I would choose is one of the new EWG hooks. These are what I've been using most. I picked a couple of these up a few months ago. These are from Flatlands Tackle, and these are the new weedless EWG Ned heads. So you can see that they've got a little light wire hook on there. It's got a weedless, you know, EWG style hook in there, so you can texpose that hook into the back of the bait. You don't have to worry about it getting hung up all the time. In fact, I fished this exact rig around a bunch of really thick grass, thick stuff. Didn't have any issues, was still able to catch fish. So that was the first time I'd done that, and that really opened up my eyes to this rig. Not the first time I fished a Ned rig, but I mean the weedless Ned rig like this, weedless. On the market now, Big Bite Baits also has some. I'll talk about those a little bit more in an unboxing I'm doing, as well as some of the lifted jigs. They've got some as well. So I'll show you these more, a little bit more up close, rig them up, but I've got an unboxing video to do on some 20% off Black Friday stuff. So specifically for the head, I would use one of these from one of these companies in either a 16th or an 8th. Depending on how shallow you're fishing, 5 feet or less, I would just throw in a 1/16. Otherwise, 1/8 does really well anywhere. But the lighter 1/16, if you're fishing out around really rocky stuff, go with as light as you can get away with because you're going to get hung up less. There's all kind of different plastics on the market. Zoom has one now. It's essentially just a little tiny Cinco. They call it the Beatdown, but it does have the flat head there that rests, you know, completely snug and up against those jig heads. Something like that. Of course, some things you've seen me use lately, the Z-Man TRD Hogs, pretty cool, different profile. And also the Z-Man TRD Craws, very effective lure. I've had a lot of luck with that. But if I only had to choose one, I would go with the regular, very boring 2.75 inch TRD, regular old Ned rig in green pumpkin. To me, green pumpkin is my all-time go-to favorite color around here. Any sort of bottom bait, green pumpkin works well. It mimics craw. You know, bigger baits like the Texas rig, you can have it mimic bluegill. A little finesse rig like this is great as a bottom bait because if you're fishing right behind somebody that's throwing a big jig, there's a good chance you're going to clean up and catch the fish that they didn't. Now, you may not be catching the size that they do. They might go through there and catch, one 4-pounder, where you go through and catch 17 1-pounders and maybe a 2.5-pounder. But the thing is, for me, I'm, again, not trophy fishing all the time. So if I'm having a day where I can't catch anything, I whip out a Ned rig to catch 10 2-pound bass. I'll take that all day, every day. That's it for me. Lure number 5, that little green pumpkin TRD Ned rig. So there you have it, fishing friends. Those are my 5 baits that I would never leave home without. The frog, the stick bait, the Texas rig, the old chatterbait, and finally, the Ned rig. But enough of my yapping. I want to hear from all of you. So comment below and let me know what your 5 lures would be that you'd never leave home without. Do we have any lures in common? Are there some lures that are completely different from me? Any that you feel that I've left out and I'm insanely ignorant for not mentioning it? I guarantee a lot of people are thinking a jig. Whatever it is, comment below and let me know. I love to hear from all of you. Now, I know I didn't do a subscribe fishing friend last week, so you get 2 tonight. The 2 subscribe fishing friends tonight are one and only Chi, or Chai, I don't know how you say it. I know you're a fan of the TRD craws. Some of those right there, you said you picked up some. I hope you've been having luck with them. And number 2 is Matt Eckersley. Here's your shout out. I told you I wouldn't forget about you. So thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to everybody else that watches and supports my channel. Again, I'm blown away. Some dude in Iowa talking about baits in his basement. You all keep watching. So thank you all for watching, and until next time,